Hello to all viewers of my channel. Have you ever had that thought, that sinking feeling that all your success is, well, just a fluke? And any minute now, you're going to be exposed. If you have, you are definitely not alone. Today, we are diving deep into a really fascinating psychological tangle that, believe it or not, affects some of the most capable people out there. We're going to explore this surprising, really powerful link between the drive to be perfect and that nagging feeling of being an imposter. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to unpack what it even means to feel like a fraud. Then, we'll get into the perfectionist engine that keeps it running and take a look at the anatomy of that self-doubt cycle. After that, we'll jump into some practical stuff, how you can start rewriting your own inner script before we wrap up with a pretty cool twist, the paradox of success. So let's get right into it. What does it actually feel like to be a fraud? Let's start by unpacking that experience, and you might be surprised by just how common this feeling really is. Yeah, look at that number. 70%. That's the estimated slice of the population that will feel the symptoms of what we call imposter syndrome at least once. I mean, that is a staggering 7 out of every 10 people. The biggest takeaway here, this isn't some rare disorder. It's a shared human experience, and it's especially common among high achievers. So let's put a formal name to it. The term imposter syndrome was actually coined way back in the 1970s by two psychologists, Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. They were the first to really describe this pattern where no matter how much external proof of success someone has, they're just convinced they're a fake and don't deserve any of it. Does any of this hit home for you? You chalk up a big win to just getting lucky. You live with this constant low-grade anxiety that you won't be able to meet expectations. Someone gives you a compliment, and you immediately feel uncomfortable, like you have to deflect it. And oh, that fear. The fear that one tiny mistake is going to be the thing that pulls back the curtain and shows everyone you're not as smart as they think. Okay, so what is fueling all of this? This is where it gets really interesting, because there's this powerful connection to a specific kind of perfectionism that acts like the engine driving this whole experience. It is absolutely crucial to understand that not all perfectionism is the same. On one hand, you've got healthy striving. That's about setting high but achievable goals. It's motivated by a genuine desire for excellence. But on the other hand, you have what researchers call neurotic perfectionism. This isn't about excellence. It's driven by a deep, gut-wrenching fear of failure. It sets impossibly high standards where anything less than 100% perfect feels like a complete disaster. So let's look at how that neurotic perfectionism actually builds this self-perpetuating cycle of doubt. Understanding the mechanics of how this thing works is really the first big step to breaking free from it. This cycle is just vicious. It all kicks off when a new project or task lands on your plate, and immediately, bam, anxiety and self-doubt flood in. Your response is usually one of two extremes. You either over-prepare like crazy, or you procrastinate until the last possible second. But here's the kicker. You get it done, and you probably do a great job. But instead of feeling proud, all you feel is relief. Any praise gets dismissed. You tell yourself, oh, I just got lucky, or, well, I had to work 10 times harder than anyone else. And just like that, you've reinforced that core belief that you're a fraud, setting yourself up for the exact same roller coaster next time. And this feeling can show up in different ways. Dr. Valerie Young, who's a leading expert on this, identified 5 common types. You've got the perfectionist, who thinks one tiny flaw means total failure. The expert, who's afraid they'll never truly know enough. The natural genius, who believes if they have to work hard at something, they must be a phony. Then there's the soloist, who has to do everything on their own, and the superhero, who feels they have to be a top performer in every single role in their life. See yourself in any of those? I just love this metaphor. It captures the problem so perfectly. Your accomplishments are real, they're valuable, they're like these precious jewels. But for someone feeling like an imposter, it's like all those jewels are locked away in a safe that you can't open. You know they're in there, but you can't feel their weight, you can't see their sparkle. They've been completely devalued. These feelings are basically built on a foundation of mental traps, or what psychologists call cognitive distortions. For instance, there's all or nothing thinking, which tells you if it's not perfect, it's garbage. Then you have the habit of attributing everything to luck, which robs you of the chance to actually internalize your success. And finally, there's catastrophizing. That's the one that takes a tiny mistake and blows it up into definitive proof that you're about to be exposed. Okay, so what on earth did we do about this? Well, the good news is the goal isn't to somehow completely eliminate these feelings. That's probably not realistic. The real goal is to learn how to manage them, to turn down the volume on that inner critic, and to start rewriting that internal narrative. So here are some really concrete things you can start doing. First, just talk about it. Seriously, sharing these feelings with someone you trust shatters the shame that thrives in silence. Second, try keeping an evidence log. Just a simple document where you write down your wins and positive feedback. When you feel like a fraud, you can look at the cold, hard data. Also, get in the habit of actively reframing your thoughts. When your brain says, I got lucky, you consciously push back with, my hard work put me in a position to succeed. And please, for your own sanity, stop comparing your messy, behind-the-scenes journey with someone else's perfectly polished highlight reel. This is such a powerful little mind trick. Just think about it. If your best friend came to you and said these things about themselves, what would you say? You'd be kind, you'd be supportive, you'd list all their amazing qualities, right? The real challenge is learning how to turn that same compassion back on yourself. And now we get to my favorite part of this whole topic. It's the final and I think most empowering piece of the puzzle. What if we've been looking at this feeling all wrong? Let's completely reframe what it means to feel like an imposter. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. The data shows that this feeling disproportionately affects high achievers. In fact, some studies have found that as many as 2 out of every 5 successful people feel this way regularly. Think about that. It's not a sign that you don't belong. It's often a sign that you're pushing yourself, that you're growing and stepping into challenging new spaces. And if you do feel this way, look at the company you're in. We're talking about people like Albert Einstein, Tom Hanks, Michelle Obama. Even the brilliant author Maya Angelou once said, I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. You are in remarkable company. And this quote just perfectly nails the central paradox here. You've probably heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's that bias where people who have very low ability in something tend to massively overestimate how good they are. So logically, the very fact that you're worried about your competence, the fact that you have enough self-awareness to even question your skills, is often the clearest sign of all that you actually are competent. So here's the big reframe. Maybe that inner voice isn't just a critic we need to shut up. Maybe it's actually a sign of conscientiousness, a sign that you care deeply about doing good work. The real goal isn't to silence it, but to transform it, to turn it from a harsh critic that holds you back into an inner coach that pushes you to grow. I want to leave you with that final thought to chew on. What if this feeling isn't a bug, but a feature? What if it's simply the price of admission for playing in a bigger arena, a natural consequence of a mind that's ambitious enough to keep pushing its own boundaries? Subscribe to the channel and also suggest your topics for future videos in the comments.